very good game, but getting him onto the Kog'Maw really does set you up for the mid and the late game if you can build a composition to protect him.
Yep, usually seeing that Kalista as well on the ban list, and the Kog'Maw and the Tahm Kench being a bit of a combination lately. We see the Kench banned. OpTic still wants that Kog'Maw. They feel like they can protect it, and we're waiting for Team Liquid's second pickup now.
Expecting to see an Ornn or a Braum here, because I feel like you don't want to give over that pair to your opponent. If you do take the Ornn away, then your opponents can take the Braum, you can take the Braum here, and that can kind of sometimes block the utility of that Ornn with the ultimate in team fights. But if you take neither here, it opens up the possibility for OpTic to grab both, and then you can't actually easily block out the Call of the Forge God with that ultimate, but they are going to go.
Pobelter says Malzahar, please.
Yeah.
Interesting. So getting a few good power picks to start off for Team Liquid. They feel like they can revolve around those picks. Even if OpTic Gaming gets those two you were just talking about, that Braum and possibly the Ornn to come in here.
I think it would be a nice couple picks. It doesn't mean they're going to go for it, but I mean, Braum combines well with the Kog'Maw, offering some protection there. I do think that the Ornn is such a solid, strong team fighter if you're going to be looking for that sort of a play style, but going more for comfort here with powerOfEvil. It's his most played champion all time by far. He's obviously famous, kind of for his more unique builds with it as well, going for things like the Nashor's Tooth Orianna.
Got to go for those late game fights. Not seeing too many tanky things this time, so we may not get to see that tried and true build from him. But there is that Ornn pickup, so they got the shield at least for the Kog'Maw. Braum's still on the table, however, but Ornn is locked in for Zig in that top lane.
Exactly, and my only issue with this is why not try to take both? Is Orianna so heavily contested? Is it going to be banned away when Malzahar's already taken for your opponents? Maybe it would, but Braum certainly seems like the obvious pick here now for Team Liquid. Braum Kalista is a good combination, and having the Unbreakable does ban that out, but neither team's really highly prioritizing it just yet and focusing more on strong lanes. So this is something that Team Liquid has done very well with in the past. Gnar is such a comfort pick for Impact, and he can be very dominant in the side lanes. That's kind of where he got most of his fame, I would say, in NA with the top dive playing Gnar, and they've drafted some really powerful solo laners for themselves.
Yeah. Looks like Mark so far getting what he wished out of the game. Everybody being themselves so far. No real just straight counters. It seems like everybody getting what they came in with the idea of. Braum, there is that ban coming out from Team Liquid. And OpTic now, 20 seconds to decide their first phase 2 ban.
Yeah, very interesting. OpTic not going to be able to take the Braum, but obviously, Team Liquid not concerned about not having that for themselves to be able to block out that Ornn ultimate. It has been so common throughout the different regions, LCK, NA, EU, to be picking Braum into Ornn because of that. Ornn, obviously, we have to remember, can still go support. We did see Hakuo play it. Can more commonly go top lane, and which is what I am expecting, but you obviously have the opportunity to swap that around if Zig thinks that he has perhaps a very strong counter pick for Gnar or something along those lines.
Junglers all the way down to phase 2 picks as they're going to get pinched slightly here. Possibly another support on the side from Team Liquid to make sure LemonNation has a tough time, and it is his Morgana. Been playing that quite strong lately. And what is OpTic Gaming's final ban?
Could be looking at something like an Alistar. I mean, there are options to deal with that if it goes through, but Alistar Kalista has been such a powerful combo for so long, really since the champion was first introduced into the game. Kalista has always comboed extremely well. Alistar is very strong in this meta.
Like a Hex Flash.
Exactly. Extremely powerful initiation, not only with the Hex Flash, but with the Fate's Call, Kalista Ultimate, giving you another engaged opportunity. So I think it is a very smart ban here from OpTic to deny that sort of a combo.
All right, Team Liquid looking for a jungler. Possibly could leave that up to Xmithie to hold out the game. Olleh has also been known to get some counter picks on his teams as well.
Yeah, we haven't really seen much attention on jungle in the picks and bans, just the Gragas really. But things like Eve and Jarvan are available. Things like the Rengar that we saw a number of times is available. So there still is a lot of options coming out for the junglers.
Nice, that Thresh Kalista combo coming out. Bit of safety, bit of Fate's Call to get in and out with that Lantern as well in either play.
This is pretty interesting, though, for Xmithie to be saved the last pick. Tells me that he has somewhat of a conditional pick, something that if the other team is running perhaps too squishy of a team, you go for a Rengar. If not, you go for a tank, things like that. And that is a little bit of a tell, but you're not exactly sure what the conditions Team Liquid is looking for. If you are OpTic, you can try to disrupt this a little bit by maybe going for something more well-rounded. Maybe if you're worried about them taking the sejuani, you could grab that up here or something along those lines, but you're just trying to limit your opponent's options and think what Xmithie is waiting for. Why do they save the last pick for the jungler? And Jarvan is a very good overall jungle pick here for Akaadian. You can go full tank, you can go more aggressive builds also, and it is going to be the sejuani. So really, two very powerful team fighting combos on either side. And it seems like it's going to be less about the tempo in the early games, more about the mid-game team fighting, more about, that sort of coordination than it is about just purely dominating these lanes.
Currently looking at the teams, I feel like OpTic Gaming is going to have somewhat of a fast fight. If they do, if Cosmic Radiance wears off, I feel like Team Liquid might be able to walk around that, figure out that timing, and continue to add the damage. It's not exactly, we're going to hit you and pop you from Team Liquid. They're fine to fight a long fight.
They certainly are, and while we have been seeing generally very passive bottom lanes with Fleet Footwork, with Relic Shield and Overheal, as Irene was talking about in his segment earlier, Kog'Maw and Taric is still exploitable. This is a Thresh plus Kalista. They are playing with Ignite, so that is one of the most powerful early game AD carries and an aggressive support. So if Olleh can get those hooks onto the right targets, if you're bringing in a jungler with the Lantern, that is certainly one area of attack I would be looking at for Team Liquid. And if their bottom lane can dominate, maybe you can turn this kind of late game composition that OpTic is trying to craft into someone that can never really get there.
Get that Arrow MVP back in the lists. Get a volley of him going, and you'll get that MVP back out. OpTic Gaming, you see their squad on the table looking to do what they can against Team Liquid. Coming out incredibly strong here to start the NALCS 2018 season. We'll see what they can do as we're back onto the Rift here for day 2 of week 1.
It's going to be a good one. I think there's a lot of opportunities for Akaadian to get involved early on. Jarvan does have some very strong early ganks if he wants to look for it. There are things you can do, level 2 cheeses, level 3 ganks that are very powerful. There's a lot of kind of clear options that they have. sejuani, I would say, yes, you can pull off early ganks, but it's much more about getting a safe early clear, getting the levels, trying to get to level 6, and being more powerful in those mid-game fights once you have your ultimate available.
And now, is there an imperative lane that we see Xmithie or Akaadian kind of wanting to start at or hover more towards that would give them a better advantage in the beginning?
I mean, I think really you have to be looking at the bot lane. If you're looking from OpTic side, if you can put DoubleLift and Olleh behind, that can be very powerful. If they falter in the early game on a Kalista and the Kog'Maw's already outpacing you, she's likely going to be stronger in the later stages. And likewise for Xmithie, I mean, if you can start to snowball that bottom lane, if the Kalista and the Thresh can get ahead, you can be rotating around in the mid game, finding picks with your ultimate, really starting to take over and dominating. Plus, when you have the Kalista on the bot side and you get ahead, you can take over the Dragon Pit, get those neutral objectives. The ceasefire was called off there from Arrow.
He had to go in. So I guess sneak up. We see the Relic starts as well for both sides. On the bot with a little bit of overheal as they begin their blue and red buff respectively to start things off.
Something I'm going to be pretty interested to follow here for LemonNation is, does he actually go tier? It's something that I've been liking on Taric for a long time, and it seems to be really catching on in pro play. We saw it in LCK. We've seen it in NALCS now as well. And it's really about how it interacts with his passive, because Bravado, the passive, every time you auto, it lowers the cooldowns on your spells. So once you have a couple ranks in your queue, you can essentially Q for a 2-stack heal, auto, and you immediately have another 2-stack heal. So having the super high mana regen of a tier, it can delay your sight zone, can delay some of the big item completions, gives you a massive amount of sustain, and can sometimes help you through these lanes that maybe would bully you out otherwise in the early game, just simply through the non-stop healing, the non-stop sustain.
One of those things that becomes such a nuisance. You usually walk in, walk out, get everything you need here. Olleh doing a nice job to grab a little bit of brush control, almost taking out that vision. And he pushes off with a level 2 from DoubleLift.
Yeah, exactly. And Arrow and LemonNation know that they could not actually contest that early level 2, so they are going to back off very early on. And it's going to be up to them to CS well under turret, because you really cannot contest this lane until you have some levels, until you have some more items, because in the straight-up fight, if someone gets hooked, it's going to be very, very dangerous, especially with Olleh having Ignite.
Pobelter kind of hugging the bottom side of mid. May not alert Akaadian that Xmithie would be topside. Usually see the jungler hovering that potential protection. And here, both with double buff will now fight over the Raptors. A little bit of a push onto Pobelter keeps him at bay here. powerOfEvil would have a better route into the fight. Good back and forth, though, as a few love taps are delivered by the junglers at the Raptor camp.
Yeah, and it's an important smite there for Xmithie, because these are kind of the early stages where Akaadian does have the ability to get aggressive. He is perhaps more powerful, can get away with trying to steal some of these camps, but Xmithie simply outsmites him here, doesn't end up losing much of that Raptor camp, and that really is kind of excelling him forward and pushing him forward to that level 6 where he's going to start feeling very, very comfortable.
Distance now for the bot lane, may see a bit more aggression coming out. Like silencing prolific visions onto powerOfEvil as he keeps his ball in a forward position. Always like to see that from Orianna players. Keep your opponent on their toes. 21 to 22, things are pretty quiet here in the bot lane. As I said, Arrow, LemonNation know when they got to play it safe. Just keep the farm going.
And you can see, though the junglers have not shown up in bot lane, just look at the ward coverage on the bottom side of the map. They know that this is the focus, where they have to either keep their laners safe or enable themselves to get these ganks. So focus on the early scuttle. Akaadian using his smite there. So many wards littered across the bottom side of the map. An early ward in the tri-brush from TL, because you either have to protect yourself from the gank, or you have to isolate that 2v2 if you're RTL to try to really pull something off. So a lot of focus here on the bot side from both teams, and we'll see if either one can really make a move to kind of swing it in their direction.
And it's even more true that it's focused on the champions. I mean, nothing against an Ocean Drake, but usually you don't get that much vision for an Infernal or a Mountain either.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right that they are trying to protect and just figure out what's going on down here. Looks like that's going to leave Impact and Zig on an island for quite a while. So this could get very interesting, especially if powerOfEvil and Pobelter kind of start to have it switch in their lane, and one of them can start to roam at 6.
And Akaadian is down here, not spotted by the Kalista ward, but Xmithie does see him, and again, both junglers still hovering all around the bot side. You can see Akaadian, despite the fact that 2 camps are up on his top side, camps are respawning for Xmithie, they have not yet head there because they need to make sure that this bottom lane is stable, that this bottom lane is safe. And we can take a little moment as the action kind of dissipates to talk about some of the rune choices that are pretty interesting here. Yeah. Some people I've seen commenting on why would a sejuani take fleet footwork? It's actually about the rune kind of set bonuses, the stats that you get for taking the precision first. Giving the attack speed to sejuani really massively helps with that early clear, because in the previous rune and mastery system, you saw many tank junglers take a lot of early attack speed to help with that clear. Right. And that's something that this is enabling her to do. And even fleet footwork for Impact, also going to give him the attack speed and allow him to kind of sustain through and heal up from some of the early power that someone like an Ornn has.
Xmithie walking into danger. It's going to be Akaadian and powerOfEvil just on the end. We wondered if the level 6 roam would come in from powerOfEvil, and it does. And as you said, Xmithie with a fast flash on those fingers gets himself to safety.
But hey, establishing some pressure on the top side. They get Sejuani's flash out. Akaadian is trying his best to utilize this early advantage he has with his champion pick. So far, Xmithie, though, equal to the task, is actually level 5 first, thanks in part to the fact that he outsmited Akaadian at that Raptor camp. And this was a nice move from OpTic, not only because they found Xmithie in the jungle, but even if they did not, they could have actually gone up to the top side around Impact, and as he's teleporting back in, perhaps pulled off a dive, which would have been devastating for that top side of Team Liquid.
Top lane's hitting 6 now, as we mentioned them. Going forward back. Zig has Ignite currently in that lane. Looks like he'll take the long walk back as well for now. Nope. Got to teleport in because he didn't use it. I was wondering. A good push by Impact. Makes the switch, and he does get that TP in.
And that's one of the really nice advantages of taking the Unsealed Spellbook. As you point out, he starts with the Ignite, perhaps giving him a little bit more lane pressure, and had Xmithie not been there to intercept, they could have actually dove with the Ignite there and perhaps pulled off an early kill. Instead, he doesn't find the opportunity, just swap over to the teleport, TP right back to lane. And because of the Summoner Spellbook, he has a lower cooldown on that TP anyway. And despite the fact that Impact used his teleport earlier, they'll come up around a similar time.
Impact taking care of some things on the to-do list, getting the Blast Cone out to keep his top lane a little safer. And he actually doesn't have too many wards at the moment, so he's just biding that time, saying, I'll use my jump to get out. But the vision is currently not there, still has quite a bit on his teleport as well. Xmithie's on the bot side, so he does have to stay pretty careful. But again, the attention is towards the bot lane, so he might just get out lucky on this one.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's actually pretty interesting to see DoubleLift went for a super early Targon's upgrade. So kind of saying, hey, maybe this lane is stabilizing. Instead of going for additional combat power, he gets a little bit more survivability. Yeah. He's getting extra gold generation for his support also, with a faster cooldown on that shield. But they are going to be going straight for this Ocean Dragon. They have the Kalista secure. We'll see if OpTic is going to want to try a challenge. They're coming over.
Pinched on both sides. No Cosmic Radiance from the support. Smite goes down to Xmithie. That's the stopwatch, and he is surrounded by 3. He'll be going down. And that's going to be first blood going over to Arrow for the Ocean Drake to the side of TL.
Yeah, and that is the exact person you want that first blood on. Get it onto the hyper carry, and that is the result of the pressure that powerOfEvil and Akaadian put it on the top side. If Xmithie has his flash available, he likely gets out of that fight. So this is, a couple steps back that they are now getting the payoff from that early move. Very nice stuff from OpTic. They felt that they had the power to do that. In the early stages, you actually take a lot of damage from the dragon. Xmithie was already relatively low from it.
A little wallop, quick bop. It is Ornn, though. Should be able to get himself out of this. Searing charge, bellows. But a great damage by impact. Playing it more aggressive than the Ornn is basically what you have to do as soon as he gets a hold of that lane. He gets a hold of it, basically the map.
Yeah, certainly so. Impact trying to assert his lane dominance, but back here to this dragon fight. Look at Xmithie's health. Just getting that low simply from the damage he's taken, and this is kind of forcing TL to back off. The rotation came in very quickly here from OpTic. They isolate Xmithie in the pit. You can see Akaadian camping on the lantern, so he cannot actually click on it. They're both trying to stand on top of that to deny that exit, and even able to give over the kill to Arrow is just fantastic stuff for them.
Mid, powerOfEvil doesn't miss much here and actually cleans up to be ahead in CS. Pobelter just pushes that wave up, and now Xmithie back to farming his jungle. We wondered, would Akaadian kind of be able to route Xmithie, figure out if he was the mastermind behind the early game, and so far, he's kind of put a stall out on what Xmithie has been doing.
Yeah, he certainly has, but Xmithie is going to be pretty happy because he's level 7, despite the fact that he did die. He is about even in farm. They did get the Ocean Dragon, so it's not any sort of devastating thing that has happened to them. They're feeling both pretty good about what they have accomplished in the early stages, and I think we're at a pretty even game state. Another thing that is kind of interesting about the way that Impact was playing the lane there, using his ultimate and everything aggressively, trading his HP out, is the fact that he has fleet footwork, means he can heal back up off of these trades, whereas it's going to be harder for Zig to do so. He does not have, a Corrupting Potion. He does not have, that kind of innate same sustain from runes. So, it's going to be about trying to trade aggressively, getting the Black Cleaver, likely building for the Frozen Mallet, and trying to isolate this 1v1 where he can whittle down the Ornn, force him back to base, start pressuring turrets, and really kind of exploit his advantage that way.
A kill to Arrow, being separated a bit by CS on DoubleLift, that lane going in his favor. They're going to be able to pretty much even out on items. Still, if Arrow can be protected, it will be a very, very big Kog'Maw come this late game. Happily sitting still in this bot lane. I think we'll get a little bit of an extended laning phase out of this one until the AD carries or bot lanes get where they want, based on when they'll be able to move for the next objectives.
Exactly, and I think if you're OpTic, you're happy as long as this is a slow bot lane. If you're not dying, if you're farming, you're still getting experience, you're comfortable to play this very slowly. And yes, he is down some far, but thanks to the first blood going over, he's up a little bit of gold. And things are looking pretty good, despite the fact that the lane position is very nice for Team Liquid. They are trying to utilize their early advantage as best as they can by freezing this wave. They're holding it against their opponents. So you see Arrow and LemonNation now saying, you know what, we can't actually enter the lane. They're being forced out simply because of the wave management that DoubleLift and Olleh have been putting on. And that is really a really strong way to actually use their advantage. You don't always just have to push it in and get turret damage, threaten the dive. You can simply hold it against your opponents.
Oh boy. Is it worth it though? Over the wall. He's good. Arctic Assault to safety. Also, OpTic a little inclined to think that there might have been a teleport bottom. You saw Olleh just a second ago just walk up into the face of Lemon and Arrow and put a very deep ward in that bottom rush. Could have been an impact teleport. They cleared it right away and said, no, no thank you.
I mean, this is actually an insane amount of vision for OpTic. Look at the bottom side river. How many wards are there? That is just an enormous amount of vision. They're so focused on protecting Arrow, on protecting LemonNation. There's no possible route really to sneak through here except for a lane gank. That would be the only way Xmithie could get in, is if he can get Lantern through the lane and find his way in there. But they have such good coverage, and this is really speaking to their game plan and executing well on that. Xmithie immediately seeing they need to back off.
Cosmic Radiance comes down. We talked about the long fights and who they might be in favor of if the protection can't be there. LemonNation almost gets himself to safety. Olleh holds the hook.
Pobelter's here.
God almost locks it up. Pobelter taking a bit of a risky position.
Oh, the mid laners here. They have the shockwave available.
Play onto Akaadian. Can he get the Cataclysm in? He cannot. They go for
the Zonius.
Immediately onto the stopwatch. Ultimates are being dodged and routed in this fight. But the kill still comes in through Pobelter. And it looks like the 1-for-1 will stop there, but OpTic still pushes by.
OpTic has the health advantage. They have gotten a couple of members down low, and they're going to look to push for this turret. They want to knock down the first turret here.
Olleh looking
Fantastic
for a hook,
map
but
movement.
is there a follow-up? Fate's Call is used. The box is used. They can't really crowd control much of what's there. Not going to attack anybody. Zig gets out without turret aggro. Very smartly played, and it looks like Arrow gets the Voidoo's down to separate the fight. Impact pushing top the whole time.
Yeah, Impact does knock down the first turret there. TL able to hold on, and because of that, they have a goal advantage, but Akaadian!
Ooh! Pulls the rug right out from under Xmithie as he feels like he's safe to get a little bit of vision for DoubleLift and Olleh to farm, but it was not safe yet.
What an explosive game. The rotations made so quickly by both teams. powerOfEvil and Akaadian rushing down the river to support that bot lane, and the instant TP from Zig does allow them to turn that around, but Impact playing for himself, playing to get this side lane advantage, does get the first turret, which is going to mean he's going to have so much extra gold on his own person, and that is where all the advantage is going to be for them. But here it is again. It was spotted early, but not enough time to react. The early ultimate, very smart. LemonNation kind of trying to take the sacrifice for himself, but you see the TP down for Pobelter. Zig is already TP down here as well. If you look at the minimap, you see Orianna and J4 coming down. And watch Pobelter's play on this. They're looking for the engage. Nice play from Olleh there to push back the Shockwave. Ooh. Then the stopwatch is used actually on that Shockwave, so really nice mini kind of micro plays within this fight, and very impressive stuff from both sides. And I've got to say, I'm actually extremely impressed with how OpTic is playing out the early games. TL is at a gold advantage, but they were expected to be the heavy favorites coming into this, and you have got to be somewhat encouraged by this early start as an OpTic fan.
I mean, it's not even really not considering that OpTic was going to do that. That was just an all-out, very well done play. A little overconfidence maybe even on Pobelter's.
Oh, they're going for the engage again.
And TL feels like they want to get it back right away. The jungler right in the back pocket of this bot lane. That's what we figured would happen all game. Xmithie trying to come up with a kill. Pobelter solidifies that one for himself. It's now LemonNation. It's going to be in the eyes of DoubleLift. The Malefic Visions picks up another one. Will Double get one for himself. That's going to be the stopwatch going down. And Xmithie picks up number 3 in the bot lane as it's 4-3 overall.
Nice roams again there from TL, getting down to the bot side, and Olleh has been so good on this Thresh, finding the hooks. It looked like that was a fight that could be turned around by Arrow. He had his flash available. He had the Rage Blade complete. And,
absolutely.
Getting that Rage Blade stacked up looked like he might be able to take down DoubleLift, but the stopwatch in combination with a great hook from Olleh onto Arrow shuts that down. And when Pobelter arrives, they get so much from that fight.
Instantly stopping Akaadian as well. Having quite a good game himself. I'm sure he won't put a stop on himself. He'll keep getting to these lanes to try for the ganks. And now we see TL, just how much that kind of perturbed them. They said, okay, yeah, we need to turn on the switch as well and get something back.
Yeah, and you see just how powerful the engage is with this Kalista, right? You throw in your support with the Fate's Call, you have the box, you have the Flay, and if your Thresh can follow up properly and hit those CCs, pull in the Kog'Maw, you can really shut them down. They're looking to set something up here.
Oh boy,
camping the brush, but do decide to back off.
You got me excited. They're like, wait, Cosmic Radiance probably up. This could go bad. They backed off, remembering the cooldowns, but they did have Xmithie in the back pocket waiting. He's going to be chasing Akaadian out of the jungle. His impact is just, he has one thing in mind, and he is doing that job, and that's keep the distraction time.
Yeah, if you can keep Ornn out of those team fights, then not having a Braum doesn't matter, right? He's not going to be able to actually join. He's putting on so much pressure on the top side, really executing well on what his job is in this game plan. You've got to say, though, scaling in full effect here for OpTic. Orianna is able to knock down the mid turret. You already have the Rage Blade as well as the Targon's for Arrow. He's looking good. And LemonNation did go for the tier, which is more of that kind of scaling style build that we talked about earlier. So there's going to be a lot of sustain coming out from that Taric here too.
Clear in mid. Still so much vision towards this bot side. Really, really knowing the Kog'Maw is what they need to keep protected. Shields for him, as well as the Orianna. Even after that, the Tahm Kench gets banned out, still the Kog'Maw that Arrow wanted, still the protection game that they're going to play throughout the lanes.
They're going to go for this dive here. They just spotted Pobelter on a ward top side, and they're looking to push them back. If TL tries to defend, they will get doped, but they're just going to back off, and that's another turret going the way of OpTic, who actually takes the turret lead now. Very nicely done.
Impact Gnar's in, Gnar's out. Zig tries to get a quick clear on the minions as well so they can't get too much damage on the turret. Those massive auto attacks from Pobelter coming through. Impact does all the work. Pobelter comes in and cleans up the solo goal. Gotta feel good.
Yeah, trying to make a liar out of me. Gotta tie up the turrets. But TL still with a gold advantage, want to keep pressing.
Yeah.
You know, I do think that this is a tougher to execute team fight team in the late game for TL because, you know, Thresh is more dependent upon hitting that hook. So your baseline value is lower than that of a Taric with the ultimate, generally speaking. You know, and the Gnar, your baseline value is probably going to be lower than an Ornn if it comes to that 5v5 team fight. Plus you have a Kog'Maw versus the Kalista. It's hard to say where that is going to go if the Kog'Maw is even. But TL has the ability to keep pushing. They are constantly moving around the map, looking to take down objectives. They've knocked down all the tier 1s now. They could look to establish vision control and try to knock down the Rift Herald if they want to do that next minute before it despawns. But for now, happy to just continue to move up on these turrets and try to knock them down.
The vision for OpTic has dwindled a bit on the bot side, but also not the greatest for Team Liquid. They seem to be backing off here as they see a few members, but not where Arrow and LemonNation are. They know they're coming back, but could still be dangerous. 20 minutes on the clock as Rift Herald is going to kind of just leave this game without any attention. And another Ocean Drake to come up. 2 already to Team Liquid, so they've kind of been keeping themselves in that objective game, even though they haven't resulted in the best fights after the Dragons.
Yeah, and while those dragons are nice, they are certainly not the ones that you want when you have early dragon control with the Kalista, with the more powerful bot lane. You're hoping for the mountain dragons to get a Baron. You're hoping for the Infernal to kind of disrupt any scaling disadvantages that you may have. So they're not going to be happy with the ones that they've gotten, but they are still an edge, and they still should secure those.
So what is the next move? You kind of see TL up a turret here. They know you're going to want to focus the top turret with something. How do you kind of route that or get under their skin?
I think, you know, for TL, they're looking to control vision and threaten around the Baron. You have a Kalista, you have such powerful objectives secure, and Malzahar also very good at helping you take the Baron with the Voidlings to help tank that up and also offer a lot of DPS. So it's about pressuring your opponents by controlling vision, limiting their options, forcing them to check into you, and then you have such great pick with the Fates Call, with the hook, with the Malzahar, with the ultimate coming out of sejuani. So really it's about get vision, make your opponents make a bad choice, limit their options, and kind of choose those fights, because OpTic is going to try to stay safe.
Oh, there's that hook. Well, 1-2 hit.
Nice
Double
shockwave.
shockwave. Cosmic Radiance comes down on a good initiation. Cataclysm onto Xmithie and Pobelter locked in. Pobelter forced the flash to teleport now.
Oh, the Ornn
From
ulti!
Impact. That's the dodge, but it's the brittle on to Pobelter. No follow-up, however, as the distance is too long from OpTic to TL now.
And TL, they set up that trap, but there was more OpTic members there. They weren't really sure what they were buying into as far as this fight goes. And this is a full tank J4 that they caught with a Taric supporting you, with the Orianna behind him. 4 members were already at that fight, plus Zig able to TP in faster. And despite the fact that they got the jump, OpTic gets the fight that they want, and they delay the game some more. They maintain some vision around that Baron, and OpTic has got to be feeling pretty good.
It's interesting, too, because if they got Akaadian for a second, they could kind of just take him out. He's really just a lot of health, but they don't have a second to turn on these fights. It's so quick from OpTic, they just snap judgments.
And if you can't burst through the health, the Taric ultimate will come down, the Orianna shield will land.
Right.
There's a lot to really kind of back him up. And you see, you know, LemonNation here around the mid lane, they're going into powerOfEvil. Akaadian is the one jumping in front and actually getting hooked, though. And 4 members are already here. The shockwave zones them out. The Taric ultimate comes down, and they know they have to retreat. Zig's teleport has already come in earlier, forcing out a nice flash there from DoubleLift. So just good rotations and team play from OpTic. And this is, to me, a far step above what they showed us yesterday. And they're playing against a much tougher team. TL is still in the gold lead, still has a lot of options as a nice hook does land on Arrow. They're going to go for it.
Olleh in. Forge got beautiful hit back. They don't even want these fights that they're grabbing. The vision didn't spread past the hook, and they didn't know what they were getting themselves into.
I mean, Olleh just takes the hook when he hits the carry blind, but there's 5 members there from OpTic, and jumping the gun on that one was Olleh. He's going to get knocked down very quick. TL immediately realizes nothing they can do in that fight. That means Dragon goes over to OpTic. More vision goes over to OpTic, and they continually scaling up. Arrow has his QSS. You have a QSS on both the carries now. You have 3 strong front lines. You have the Taric ultimate, and we're entering into the danger zone here for Team Liquid, where if you give a 5v5 team fight to OpTic, they should win. But they are trying to sneak the Baron, and they have the possibility to do this. LemonNation is around. We'll see if he actually gets over there in time. They're now spotting it.
Oh, whoa, DoubleLift taking quite a bit on the backside of Baron as he was taking hits over Xmithie. LemonNation not going to get there, and it seems like Akaadian is holding off as well, so LemonNation just kind of flexing the muscles, pushing them out as well. And the question is, can they keep this forward momentum up? Do they continue to know what to do next, or do they kind of have that, we're happy with where we're at, and that's what hurts?
I think that OpTic can be happy with where they are at for now. You can't sit on your laurels forever, but you know, waiting until your Kog'Maw, for example, has his second item is going to be a big spike. When Kog'Maw is on that Hurricane, you know, even 2-3 items can be very powerful. When you have all this protection with the front line, plus the Taric, plus the QSS, it becomes very tough to take this guy down. So I think they're the ones in the scaling advantage. And you know, yesterday, they had such a long game, but they were kind of more of an early game tempo-based comp, as Zabutin talked about. This time they say, hey, if we're going to be able to take this team late, let's outscale them. And they're kind of turning, you know, what Mark and Jat thought Team Liquid should do on the desk against them. They have chosen the outscaling comp, and it's TL that have this pressure to execute now. They still certainly can get a fight, and if TL takes one, they'll take down the Baron very quickly, which would put it right back in their advantage. But definitely a very close game, and one that's a lot more tightly contested than many people were expecting coming into it.
Super exciting to see as well. The early game thought would be kind of won by Xmithie, with Pobelter pushing mid and powerOfEvil kind of having a bit of trouble. But in that sense that I said Mark still got, they are being themselves. They pick some wheelhouse champions that they're always used to. powerOfEvil on that Orianna, Arrow on that Kog'Maw, things that they've really been known to play well on.
It's pretty interesting. Arrow elects to go, you know, instead of something like a Hurricane, he's going straight for the Wit's End. So more defensive, and he has quite a defensive setup now. With Wit's End, with Hurricane, Tabbies, he has Targons, and he still has not used his stopwatch. So there's a lot of defensive options available for this guy, and if you overcommit on a dive, it could get turned around on you very quickly because he will be so hard to kill. Then you add in the shield of Bastion and Guardian proc from the Taric. You add in the Orianna shield. That is massively more health that you have to work through. And you have to kill him before the Taric ultimate lands, or the fight could look bad.
Damage onto Xmithie. Looking at how all these kind of items synergize as well. The Abyssal Mask over there for Zig. Once he gets into the fight, that's more damage from Arrow and powerOfEvil. Arrow hits people, a little more damage for everybody. See what they can get as they make their way to mid now. So forward wards being placed in lane. You can see teams doing that to make sure they have an idea of where people are splitting off. And right now it's just jockeying for position on this mid turret. Looks like Team Liquid wants to break that open. But OpTic's not going to let it happen just yet. It's
such a battle for vision, you know, around this Baron, because if Kalista, Malzahar can get time, they can knock down the Baron. And OpTic knows that is a great way for TL to take over this game. You get the Baron buff, you have the split push advantage with impact, you start knocking down turrets, you crack open the base, and then all of a sudden scaling advantage doesn't matter because you have a big gold lead. But if they cannot do that, if they are forced to engage into a straight up 5v5 fight that OpTic sees coming, it's going to be extremely difficult. So it's so much about TL finding a pick, getting the vision, having that hook that they don't see, or something along those lines. But they're looking for a pick on Pobelter.
Akaadian to Pobelter. powerOfEvil instantly cleanses that one out, and that is going to be one dead POB. Impact
in the
now.
bad spot.
You know, the first bad spot he's been in. Really going to be bad if he goes down. He's been having a free game up top. Dark passage to the light as Impact flashes to safety. The shield comes in now from the Locket, and they are going to be getting him all the way home. And this is going to be tough, though. OpTic have map control now, and DoubleLift was left running around that whole time, not pushing a lane, not pushing mid. It was a decision of what to do, and it seems like they're still turning Team Liquid on their head with these plays.
Yeah, what an escape there, though. Olleh flashing to get that lantern, and it looks like Impact just barely able to get away. Means that OpTic don't feel comfortable to go for the Baron because Pobelter coming back up would have his TP. So big moment for TL to get that escape, but still another good play from OpTic, who is playing the map incredibly well, who has a strong scaling comp, and finding these picks left and right. Almost got a second one, which could have blown the game wide open.
Pushing that mid, or top wave, I should say. Have to respect that, so they know a Team Liquid member will be going there, get mid pushed up again, so they still have their mid turret almost 30 minutes into the game. And it's kind of stopping Team Liquid from doing what you like as a team.
Yeah.
Well, getting into the jungle, there's such a spot of safety with that mid turret up for OpTic.
The mid turret plus a big line of vision around over to that Baron. You see 6-7 wards, and here it is again. They spot Pobelter up there. They do find him out, knock off the passive straight away. Now, this is pretty well played by Pobelter, but I believe his flash was not quite up actually during that replay. It does show up here in the spectator client, but either way, he gets knocked down with the shockwave, and then look at the escape here with Olleh coming in, trying to flash to avoid Zig's knockup, and they're not getting the extra distance on the lantern. Would have needed to flash a little bit earlier there, but either way, Impact barely escapes thanks to his support, and they are able to kind of hang on.
Job's done. That's what you got to do in that play. Feels good. Hopefully they can do it again. Lantern allowing you to get a little bit riskier in these plays, or get out of them. 6-4 here as we make that 30-minute mark. Jockey for position in mid once again, but it looks like OpTic is trying to dictate where that goes.
Yeah, they're trying to push up mid lane to get control of the dragon area. So you see, only one man splits off right now. Arrow will solo the mountain dragon while the rest of his team defends mid. This is forcing TL to either A, start Baron, B, try to commit to a fight mid lane, or C, kind of do nothing. And right now the response is go straight to Baron. They're going to start this up, and Arrow needs to be moving up right now. He is trying to finish the dragon, still has not moved up, but TL does back up off of that Baron, so they're not willing to commit, and this means OpTic have kind of outmaneuvered their opponents a little bit and gotten that free Mountain Dragon, and now it's up to TL to try to take advantage of this top lane wave.
Man, the attack speed feels so slow without the Hurricane. Just watch him. He does get it, which it proves even more of how much OpTic is holding if it's going to take Kog'Maw that much longer.
Oh, TL's looking to flank here. They're going to go for the engage. Arrow's not with them.
Two-man's done. LemonNation right in the middle. Olleh is on the back. DoubleLift has powerOfEvil in his eyes. He rends him down. But now, Akaadian and everybody in the back line. DoubleLift has the entire enemy team in his eyes. And TL is just dogpiling on top of OpTic. Team Liquid turns the game back in their favor. Baron is theirs.
Yeah, it's going to be straight. There's no way to contest this with the Kalista, even though Akaadian is still alive here. Olleh will zone to make sure, and just a nice catch there from TL, but OpTic posturing too aggressively, not knowing if they were on the Baron, but Arrow wasn't with them. You can't afford to surrender kind of that type of a fight when you don't have your hyper carry with you, and they had done such a good job of maintaining vision, of playing calm, playing collected, but you see in this, they clear out the vision in the area. They're trying to move up to try to fight this. I think they thought that TL had base, but TL flanks from the side, DoubleLift straight over the wall, catching powerOfEvil, knocks him down, and there's just no way for OpTic to fight back with powerOfEvil getting knocked down and Arrow not there.
Akaadian just is like, already sees this is a bad decision. They walk out. I think you made a perfect point. There were copious amounts of vision every time they needed to do anything in the bot lane. Now they have a bit of fog of war, and it costs them an entire fight, and it actually costs them everything they've built from the beginning.
Exactly. I mean, for the one time they don't have vision of that flank that's coming around, they think they can move up as a four-man squad. Normally, if some people are in base for TL, a four-man squad is extremely safe to move forward with and kind of control that vision, but everyone was there pretty much for TL, and Arrow was not, and that means it's the Baron and a significant gold advantage now for TL, plus the split push being enabled here for Impact. So they want to keep pushing. They need to try to knock down some turrets and really get an edge, because OpTic, if they can sit back and keep the base alive, deny any inhibitors going down, they're still in a good spot because of their scaling.
This was that point of strength their coach was talking about, saying we're very good at kind of fixing those situations. We don't dwell on them. We understand what happened. We move on and correct it.
Akaadian on the side, perhaps trying to set up a flank if they were to overcommit, but right now both teams just kind of posturing over the blue buff, and
a little bit of damage there for Xmithie. Keep himself safe. But they do feel, you can see from TL's side, a lot more confident in pressuring small things like that blue buff, like the objectives. Baron now to mid lane. Zig on the right. Akaadian will be right there with his Bass brother if they do decide to go in, but they don't really have a target.
And it is a nice pink ward there over in the Wolf Pit for Xmithie, trying to deny the vision and set up the threat of a sejuani ultimate over the wall.
Right.
You know, you can see that deciding a fight. If you catch the right carry, that can end a fight just like that. And for now, we do see Arrow back in base. Has gotten his Hurricane, which is going to help a lot with the wave clear, a lot with the team fight damage. LemonNation needs to be careful, though, because he's by himself and can't defend that turret.
You're toying with that there a little bit.
Yeah. Brave man.
Taric. Impact. There he is again. Kind of forget about him a little bit. He's done such a good job at pushing that side lane. He is in that position where you want to fight the other team and you keep thinking about that nuisance on the side. He's done such a good job, and all he's doing is splitting. Been perfect. Gets himself in a bit of trouble here as another Lantern to safety, able to dodge out on a few of these ultimates, really putting OpTic at a disadvantage.
Yeah, certainly so. TL, getting a couple turrets in the mid lane. They're trying to continue pressuring, trying to extend the gold lead. And you have Pobelter up on the top side, who does have his teleport available to join the team if they need to do so. But you can see they're pressuring all three lanes. sejuani pushing in the mid lane, 3-man in the bot side, and Pobelter pressuring top because they want everything baroned up. And that hook is not the one you want to go in on, as it is the Ornn.
18-minute Olleh would have won. Not 33-minute Olleh.
Yeah, exactly. They get a little bit too tanky at the 33-minute mark, especially with the Taric there. You got to be pretty sure you're going to burst them down if you're going to take that hook.
Exactly. Where are the pushes now? Actually, Xmithie getting a Raptor camp as they make sure they deny everything. It looks like he'll meet Akaadian for a quick second in the jungle. Those two say hello.
But either way,
just pushing each other around right now.
A nice advantage gained from TL, but no death blow dealt, right? They extend the gold lead. They have done very well for themselves in the last few minutes. The pick into Baron into a couple turrets, great. Yeah. But OpTic did hang on. They did not lose an inner turret. They did not lose, you know, any inhibitor turret or the inhibitor themselves. So they're still feeling pretty confident. And, you know, the mental fortitude that you had talked about is something that's very important in these types of games. Not allowing yourself to get too frustrated by that messed up fight that gave over the Baron, that gave over an advantage, because you can still win this game. And for TL, they need to be focused. They need to continue to apply pressure. This has been the story the entire game, and so far, they have been pretty good at doing it. The Elder Dragon is another option for them. If they can get that vision with the Kalista, if you secure that objective, that allows you to play much more aggressively, especially, you know, with someone like the Malzahar who can kind of poke them out, you know, with the Malefic Visions plus the Elder Burn. That can be an intimidating amount of damage.
I'm sure fans of TL are very happy to see this as well. The ability to weather the storm so early in the season, recognize situations, and they've done quite well. DoubleLift still 2-0-5 after still a good early lane, but 0-0-4 where he was only picking up assists. Sometimes that can give you a false sense in the fights and you miss position due to the damage you think you have, but they're on track, and that fight has absolutely put them in the driver's seat now. 35 minutes in, you're looking at a 7,000 gold lead now for Team Liquid.
Definitely nice. I'm expecting Knight's Vow probably to be coming out next for LemonNation. He already has the locket for Arrow, so these are all ways to kind of buy time for that ultimate to land, but it's TL straight onto the Elder, and they do spot it now. OpTic will have to respond. You can't allow them to build up too many stacks, but they're forcing them back, and now they've kind of established the control over the area. We'll see if they're going to commit to an all-out fight. Both top laners aren't here. Here they go.
Ren's fell off the Elder Drake, but DoubleLift still trying to focus it somewhat. If it gets low in the fight, nobody wants to take that aggression damage, as we do get Zig in. A flash as well, quickly out, as he did not like
and that's Taric been down, but they may have caught him.
Big hit. That's going to be LemonNation going down. Yeah, like they said, if it's a long fight after Cosmic Radiance, this is going to be the fight for Liquid. They're able to just turn each member of OpTic into that pincushion. DoubleLift and the rest of the team now dogpiling again onto OpTic after the Elder Drake. Pobelter very low as the fight almost turns in the favor of OpTic. But you look back at the health bars of Team Liquid, and it was never to be.
Team Liquid with the clean ace, and they can potentially just go for the win here. Run it down mid lane. They have the minion waves pushing. They could go for a couple inhibitors. They could look to try to end, but OpTic really mismanaged their ultimates in that fight, was not able to get what they needed to get, and Liquid come out with a clean ace and an insane advantage.
Strength in the late game, understanding these very, very particular fights. It's going to be Team Liquid onto the Nexus turrets now, 12-6. One final kill coming down, and that is going to be LemonNation back onto the fountain. Nexus turret 2 is going down, and that's going to be the Nexus. Team Liquid start off week number 1 of the 2018 season 2-0.
A great first week from Liquid, but OpTic made them sweat. That was a very competitive game down to the very end. Liquid out-executed in the final team fight. They take a clean team fight ace. That gets them the win, but this was a very competitive game. Despite the fact that OpTic goes down 0-2, they are, you know, having some hope. This was certainly something that they can build upon.
I said it right in the beginning of the game, pat on my back. I did say it was going to be one of those situations where you play against a team like Team Liquid. If you do have that error, if you do have that loss, you'll know exactly what to look at. And they know exactly that one fight right below Baron, exactly what to look at and where they went wrong.
Yeah, certainly so. I mean, the Taric ultimate comes out early. They retreat with that. The shockwave hits only Olleh, who has Stoneplate active, which is basically negated completely. Call of the Forge God, the ultimate there from the Ornn, was not able to be redirected. You know, Zig had to flash out as he TP'd in. Everything really felt like it went wrong there for OpTic in that final fight, and they had such an ability to actually take a win in that fight if they were able to pull it together a little bit more, but the execution just wasn't there, and TL do just simply play better in the final fight, and they get the win.
I think we saw how each team was stretched under their pressure as well. TL was stretched under 18, 22 minutes of pressure, and then we saw that bit of pressure at the end of the game stretched OpTic into a position where they couldn't find the next fight. They couldn't find the next step up into an advantage.
And despite the fact that TL did not have the scaling advantage, one thing they did have is simply more calm play, better execution in the late game. And they talked about it on their desk. This is a team that should have the better players, that should be comfortable if they can get to this kind of even game state in the late game where it becomes very complicated. You have to execute so well. And they did that, right? They waited for the perfect fight, and when the opportunities presented themselves, they pounced. They found the kills around the Baron that got them a big gold lead, and they find that fight. They kite out the cooldowns, and they get the perfect fight at the Elder Dragon that closes the game.
They make it look so easy after such a tough early game. That's why you never surrender. So to hear more about Game 1, let's go ahead and send it over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you very much, Riv. Things are looking good for this Team Liquid squad as they close out Week 1 at 2-0. Riv said they make it look easy, but let's be honest, today didn't look as easy as yesterday looked up against TSM. And that's where I want to return to the win conditions set out by you guys at the top of the day. For Team Liquid, it was about respecting your opponents to the degree that you respected TSM, as well as picking towards late game. You had 2 win conditions, Jat. How well do you think they followed those win conditions?
Not great, actually.
Listen to Coach Jat.
Yeah, because you can see the Thresh Kalista lane is going to get outscaled, and they won the lane, but really not that hard. That was the first turret that goes down in the game, and then the Gnar is supposed to be the split push pressure that doesn't team fight as well. And it was more kind of about their creativity in the mid and late game that managed to win this game, because it didn't go well early, and there was a point in the game where Mark and I were both agreeing if OpTic plays this perfectly from here on out, they would win.
All right, well then on the flip side of the equation is that OpTic Gaming. You said be yourself, be true to the identity that is OpTic Gaming. Did they find it? I mean, powerOfEvil on Orianna seems about as himself as he could possibly be.
It was a much
Gnasher's tooth.
You're right.
That was
there
the
was
problem,
one more step.
If,
there was one more step.
That's why they lost the game right there. Didn't stick completely true. No, I think they went more meta while still sticking pretty true to themselves. They give the best early meta like brawler in some sense in Jarvan 4 over to Akaadian. He's able to make some nice stuff happen early on. Kog'Maw 4 arrow, great pick, hyper carry, let him be able to in position to carry the game. And Orianna for powerOfEvil, like we said, that's basically a signature champion. So I like the draft overall. It was just that when it became mid and late game, you could see the shot calling abilities.
Okay, yeah, to your point, there was a moment in the game, the two of you are saying, given the goal differential, if OpTic plays correctly, they should win out based on the composition, and yet that's not what happened. So where was the breaking point? Where did this fall apart for OpTic?
In a few places, but most notably at the Baron fight, about 29 minutes, 30 seconds into the game. Look at where Kog'Maw is. Look at where the rest of OpTic is. That's a big problem. And yes, there was some really creative vision stuff that Team Liquid did. It kind of faked a recall, but you shouldn't have your OpTic players that far when your main carry is that far away.
Right, I mean, at 25 minutes of the game, I think it was a 1K gold lead here. And so for Team Liquid, that's very scary when you pick a Thresh Kalista bot lane. Yes, they were ahead. That was probably one of the stronger points on the map, but the Kog'Maw was online. If he's there in that fight, it could be very difficult. But like Jet said, Team Liquid, vision controlling around Baron, sit in the topside jungle for 30+ seconds, and all of a sudden gets a little lax on the side of OpTic.
Seems oddly reminiscent of what Zabuteen had tweeted out. You know, a Q away. They feel they're a player 2 away, and I'm starting to see elements of that. A player 2 away from taking victories. The fact of the matter is, you got to pick up the W's. We're going to send it over to Avli May, though, who's standing by with the victorious mid laner.
Thanks, guys. I am here with Pobelter, mid laner for Team Liquid. Now, we had the POB versus POE in the mid lane. Can you tell me about that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, powerOfEvil is a really good player. I respect him a lot. And when he was on Misfits last split, just at Worlds, they were almost able to take down SKT. So, I really respect his skills. And yeah, he played his signature Orianna. Kind of sad he didn't go Gnash's Tooth, but he was able to put a lot of pressure on me.
What do you think about the rest of OpTic so far?
I think the match was a bit tougher than we expected. They actually played pretty well and defensively against our picks, who were pretty strong early game. So we weren't able to get that good of a lead. But I think right now, maybe just as a team, we're a little bit stronger. So, despite the difference in team comp strength late game, we were able to overcome that and win team fights.
Now, old Immortal fans are super happy to see you continue playing with Xmithie and Olleh. What does keeping that old squad and sticking together mean to you?
I think we're just pretty good at giving each other feedback inside and outside of the game, and just I guess our communication is probably a little better than all the other teams right now because we have that prior experience.
Wonderful. Well, I want to ask you, going into the split, do you have any goals, either personal for yourself or maybe for the entire team?
Well, for the team, of course, we want to first off win in playoffs, both spring split and summer split. So I think that's our main goal right now, to just do the best we can. For me, I also just kind of want to prove that I'm really fucking good and just do the best that I can, because I don't know, it feels bad to like play the song, and I feel like I've kind of been overshadowed a lot by players like Brigson and Jensen, so I kind of want to make that different this year.
Well, you guys had an amazing showing for this first weekend. Are there any teams that are kind of on your radar to look out for?
I think right now it's hard to gauge the strengths of all the teams, but as the weeks go on, I think we'll start to see who's stronger. You know, we can see both on stage and also when we play in scrims. So right now it's a bit hard to gauge the strengths of teams. Like we thought TSM was going to be really strong, and then OpTic might not have been that well put together, but we had a harder time against OpTic just now. So, but I think, you know, it's hard to see who will step it up for playoffs.
Well, thank you so much for this interview, and we're going to throw it back to the desk.
Thank you very much, Ovely. Straight from Pobelter there, you know, hard to really rank any of these teams this early on in the season, even calling out that between their two matches, the one they just played was the harder of the two. And this is where I want to pose the question to you guys. Having already been pretty hot on this Team Liquid roster, having some high hopes and expectations for their season, does today's performance instill more confidence? Does it strengthen your belief in this roster, or does it lessen it based on the difficulty that they had?
So I think it lessens it to an extent that I'm not going to say, like, man, this team's going to go 18-0, because there were definitely moments in that game where they could lose, and I'm still, after 1 week, kind of sticking with a lot of my perceived expectations that OpTic should be on the weaker end of the LCS. So if you are the best, you should smash them every time. And they didn't do that, but it does speak that they're still a very strong team, and they're pretty good from day one.
I think similar thing for me, it was nice to see them have creative shot calling, be able to win with an early game comp against somebody else who should be outscaling you. That's all nice to see, but they didn't execute on stomping bot lane and topside and all that stuff. It did become a very scary proposition for a little while there. So yeah. I agree that it would have been nicer to see them just crush them with this early game draft strategy, as opposed to be like, hey, we've been playing longer together, so we were able to come out ahead.
Yeah, it still is promising to a certain extent, though, because in week one, with new rosters, it's rare to see a team that is coordinated enough to come back in a game in which they probably should have lost based on the compositions.
And I think it's fair to say that they probably did spend, as much as we were joking about it, a lot more time preparing for TSM.
Yeah,
so it's something that they were really, really excited about, and probably, you know, really perform well. And then maybe that's not like lack of focus or anything, but just you don't know what OpTic's going to do, whereas TSM is a very well understood team. Right,
Team Liquid, our first team to move to 2-0, so that's going to be, you know, a boost of confidence for them moving forward. But, you know, now comes the challenge of staying motivated and staying in that first place position, right? Too often we start to see the ego and things creep in. Teams start to dismiss those on the bottom half of the standing. So, you know, looking at this, it looks pretty for Team Liquid and Team Liquid fans, but now it's about sustainability across 8 more weeks of play.
And you're going to have that crosshair on your back now that you're at the top.
Yep.
Everyone wants to take you down. You beat Team Liquid, you move up a lot of people's power rankings, and suddenly you're a new threat in the league.
I do think the hype machine's in full force for Team Liquid as well. They splashed all the money in the offseason, they put together the roster, and they showed up, still undefeated.
They've made a statement. We're all watching to see how that statement ends